Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable Podcast. We are here recording episode 137, and today we will be discussing and hopefully answering the question of, will technology make language learning obsolete? Who knows, but we're going to explore it today and discuss some of the different ways that technology may or may not make language learning obsolete. This one definitely hits home for me as a language teacher, because if the technology gets so good we don't need language teachers, I guess I'm going to need to look for some other types of employment. So I'm looking forward to discussing this with my amazing co-host, Jared. So without further ado, my buddy Jared, what's going on, Jared?
Hello, everyone. Will language learning make teaching obsolete? Hopefully, because then you could focus full-time on this podcast, and who knows where we could go from there. But in the meantime, everyone, please spread a little love and follow us on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. I fulfilled half of my promise. I showed you guys pictures from my time at my brother-in-law's cover band show. It was entertaining. I guess we could talk about that later. I do have one picture from my time at the apple orchard today. Chad, do you have any pictures from Beijing?
I do have a couple. I'll send them your way.
Okay, great. You could also follow us on Twitter. Spread a little love. Untranslatable 1, the number 1. And there you could see new episodes. I'm a retweeting machine and a tweeting recluse, but occasionally I'll come out from my shell. You can also give us 5-star reviews. Actually, please give us 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. We highly appreciate it. Chad doesn't need these things, but these are the kind of things that get me up in the morning and keep me going and keep me validated in life. So, thank you for that. Happy birthday, Chad. You're officially 28.
Thank you.
I can see it in your face. You're very pixelated now. That's what happens with age, everyone. You pixelate.
When you turn 20, when you turn 28, you become pixelated.
How was your birthday? How was your birthday?
It was great.
It
was great.
So, full celebrations happened?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
great.
You had said you wanted me to let loose, and so I kept you in mind the entire weekend, making sure I was getting nice and loose. So
I feel like I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah,
but also
it was a great weekend.
What kind of stuff did you do? What were the activities?
So Friday night, I went out with a friend of mine. She's Russian, and we went out, and she showed me around one of the coolest areas, in my opinion, in Beijing, which is called Sanlitun. And Sanlitun was the first bar street in Beijing. I think in like the 80s, it was where there was only like one bar, and that's where you went if you wanted to go to that one bar. Now there's a lot more than one bar. There are tons of bars, and they have all sorts of different kinds of bars. And so we went out there to start our evening, which was great. And then she showed me the Hutong district, which is, Hutongs are like these old school Chinese buildings. Like when you watch a movie, that's like based in China, the like smaller concrete buildings that like still kind of look very like, the architecture style to me seems very like China. If you just type in Jared Hutong, Hutong, you should be able to see the buildings. Maybe you can give a better description than I can. But it was really great because the Hutong district in Beijing has a lot of really awesome bars. The bars that we went to, though, were pretty much exclusively expat bars. I mean, I think I saw maybe 1 or 2 Chinese people in these bars. And my Russian friend was actually going.
Were you like, oh, come on?
Not really, here. Just because. Not really, because everyone was just so friendly.
How did you explain the Hutong district?
It's like they're like old school, very Chinese looking buildings. At least most of them.
Okay, that's very vague. They're like it's like a very tight street. It's a very small street.
Yep.
Almost looks like cars can't go down it. And they're like almost imagine storefront style holes. Not even I don't mean hole in the wall in like a offensive like
right.
There are actually some good sized places.
Small and old. Yeah.
And like they're all single story sort of tight streets with shops and restaurants and stuff along them. It looks very cool to walk
Exactly.
along. It also looks like at night it could get a little creepy.
Well, I mean, they're all pretty well lit, so
are
it's
they? Okay.
not too bad.
I can't tell from these pictures.
Right, but yeah, it was. Oh my gosh, it was just such a fun weekend.
It looks cool though.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and the nice thing was too is that we actually ran into some other people that were celebrating their birthday, so that was really cool.
British,
But good question. One guy was from Yorkshire, and apparently in Yorkshire, what they do is they basically have kind of like, we have like the complaining Olympics where, I say, oh man, I only slept for 2 hours, and you're like, oh, 2 hours? I got half an hour of sleep last night. What are you talking about? That kind of thing. So that's what the dude from Yorkshire was telling us, which I thought was hilarious. Like there's like some like quote that they say that just kind of encapsulates this idea of like, oh, you think you've got it bad? Let me just
like
tell you.
Kind of like an untranslatable, maybe you'd say.
You could say that. You could definitely say that. So yeah, so Friday night was fun. Also went to a KTV and sang some karaoke. But I tell you
KTV?
what, man,
What's that?
It's a karaoke bar.
Oh, okay.
That's just like the universal term here for karaoke bar. And the funny thing was, I have learned that if you pick any older song or not very popular song that like people in China might know, the song is going to be in a different key and maybe even a different tempo. So one of the songs I chose to sing was "People Are Strange" by The Doors, and it was literally like way faster than the original song, and it was in a different key, and I was just like, how the hell do I even sing this? Like it was
why
really
do they
ridiculous.
do that? I mean, they're clearly
because
not
they're
concerned about copyrights. No offense.
Right. I mean, you're not offending me. It's just the truth. I'm not really sure. I think it might be because they don't have, like, it wasn't probably like wherever they get these songs from. It just wasn't because it's not popular enough. Because the really
So
popular
did it actually
ones,
throw
like
you off? You can't adapt to that kind of thing?
big time. I mean, I adapted to it, but I like the song in the original key. Your ear's used to hearing things a certain way. So when you hear them differently, especially when it's like on the spot and you have to sing right then and there, it's definitely a little challenging.
Speaking of which, I hate to cut into your trip, but this kind of reminds me of my Friday night. I went to
Let's
Rick's,
hear about it.
and it was it was packed for this cover band show, but for a certain amount of time, it was only open to the business school students because that's what my sister is in, and her husband's not part of the business school, but that's how he got into the group through her because it's and so it was filled with people from the business school, but it was still packed, and it was like so they did there were probably like 8 to 10 of them, like there were a good number of them, and there was a full band, so they did all the banding. There were there was keyboard, there were 2 guitars, there was a bass, there were rotating drummers. My sister's husband drums, but then there were a couple other drummers as well. And you know what? It was pretty entertaining. They did some good stuff. They did a lot of, they did Nowadays Everybody Want to Talk Like They Got Something to Say, but nothing comes out when he moves, that Eminem song.
Really?
And Jeff, my sister's
forgot about
husband,
Dre.
was the Dre part of it. He was pretty good. I was like, oh, he's a very convincing Dre. They did stuff like
cool.
It's bittersweet. Like they had like a whole that song. They had like a whole bunch of stuff from like the that was like 3 people understood what I just did there, by the way. That was useless, even though Chad got that was still useless. So there was like a whole lot of stuff from like the current. There was a Lizzo song, which she's hot these days. I like Lizzo.
Right. Real hot.
The Juice, All About the Juice, that song.
Nice. That's a classic. Nice.
Anyway, so there was a lot of good stuff from current day back to like 90s, I would say. And it was like a good 2 hour, 45-minute show with intermission. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. It's rare that I stay out like late these days, really, especially knowing I was in Ann Arbor, which is where U of M is, where my sister lives. And I was like, I got to drive home after this. And I got invited to another bar. I was like, listen, it's 10 o'clock and I got to drive home. I'm going home.
I'm surprised you didn't. I'm surprised you didn't just crash at your sister's.
That's hilarious you said that. Didn't even cross my mind. She actually had guests over, so I probably wouldn't have been able to, now that I think about it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Even though I probably wouldn't have been able to, because she had guests over, literally didn't even cross my mind.
That's funny.
But maybe I could have. But no. So it was a good time though. And anyway, back to your birthday. Sorry, you just got me thinking about.
No, that's awesome, but I've got to ask now, Jared, did they sway your opinion at all about cover music?
Yes. It was less cheesy than I was expecting.
Okay, good. Okay.
They were all legitimately good singers, they clearly practiced. It wasn't some sort of drunken situation. They were
like
putting
at a karaoke bar.
It was a show, it was a real show. For some of the songs, they even had a brass section. They had a wind section. So they had a trumpet and a tenor and alto saxophone. So that was cool too. It was fun. And I guess also given the setting, it's weird because, there are levels of classiness for all sorts of things, whether it be music or setting. So given the fact that we were in the lowest form of setting, they actually elevated. Rick's, for those of you that don't know, anyone in East Lansing or Ann Arbor knows the legend of Rick's. But Rick's is a classic drunken college club, and it's just it's just the basic, most basic of basic college club essentially, and there's no glitz or glamour to it. It's a college club, but they actually put on a level of show I've never seen in such a venue.
That's awesome.
So I was like, this is kind of nice. And because it was specifically for the U of M people or the business school people, it wasn't like some sort of special occasion. They just rented it from 8 to 11 essentially, and so it was specifically for but after that it was open. I got one free drink. It could have been two, but the window was very small, so that was kind of cool too. But it was they elevated it was a perfect show for the setting, and it was great because people get everyone was singing along too. But it was great. Sometimes I will say this, as someone that is now a professional podcast producer, some of the audio was a little bothered me a little bit. I mean, the mics were fine and stuff, but there was a lot of reverb happening throughout the show.
Yeah, that's
they didn't have it properly balanced, and some mics. Some people were way louder than others in the mics, and so it's so some of that was off. But it was a good show nonetheless.
Did they have a sound guy there, or were they doing the sound themselves?
They had I think they had a sound guy. I could, from my angle, I was on the very side of the stage on the other side, so I couldn't see the sound area. But Jeff, my sister's husband, the guy that's also in the band, said that they did have a sound check. So that makes me assume they had even if they didn't have a real sound guy, they had a real sound check.
Right.
And
any decent band, you should have a sound check. That's for sure.
Rick's, though. Maybe they're not used to having that level of production, would be my guess.
Probably
maybe they're
not.
And so maybe they leveled it for an empty room. And then once it got loud, they had to account for it, and they turned it up, and they just turned everything up, and it messed it up. That would be my guess.
Right. Could be.
I don't know. This is too much into the weeds. It was a good time.
I just picture you, Jared, going up to the sound guy, tapping him on the shoulder, be like, "Hey, cut the reverb a little bit. Come on now."
Yeah.
Hold
on. Let me look at this. I did every time there was reverb. I did look at my girlfriend, and I was like, I feel like I wouldn't let this happen. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Now I have to make sure the production for this episode specifically is on point.
That's right.
Now that
I would laugh so hard if it's just reverb up the wazoo. That would be so hilarious. But yeah. Anyways, back to Beijing though. So I went to a KTV with Lilishka, my Russian friend. And
That's a great
she
name.
picked a lot of more. It's like the Russian version of Lily, and it's
okay. It's
But
a good name in
anyway,
English,
so
too.
we sang there probably until about maybe midnight or so, and then we went to the Hutong, the other bars in that like kind of smaller area.
Does she know
what
the
I want to say
area?
about yeah, she's been in Beijing for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So she really knows the area, and she speaks Chinese, speaks
Oh, really?
obviously Russian, and speaks
that's cool.
really good English. Yeah. But anyways, the funny thing was she picked a lot of more modern songs, and so for the modern songs, they actually had them. It was really crazy. On the TV screens, they had the music video. They had the lyrics and the music video.
I like that.
So she sang
that helps people get into
she
it
sang,
for sure.
Oh, for sure. But I was picking older stuff because I prefer older rock stuff, and I know what's in my range.
Down to the blazing
I was going to sing
fire.
that one, and they didn't have it. I was so mad.
Good.
They didn't have
Good.
that one.
They should not have that old ass song.
But I sang some Frank Sinatra, so that was fun.
Okay.
Um,
Did you
felt-
have any
felt
situations
classy.
like in Berlin where you were shocked that people didn't know the song? Like I
Well,
was
we
shocked
were
that
the
they didn't know
only-
"Roses" by Outkast, or our
Right.
friend from Canada.
Well, so this place, let me set the scene for you and the listeners. This place was way different than karaoke bars that I'm used to. You know, the karaoke bar that Jared's mentioning from Berlin, it had like separate booths you could go in and sing. This
there
one,
was a
Jared,
main
it was
stage,
just
but
one,
you didn't have to go to.
Right. And this one, all there was the main stage.
Right.
So,
okay. Is that your
and so
first
there
time
was
doing
just-
that?
what, singing on a main stage at a karaoke place?
Yeah.
No, definitely
Okay.
not.
Okay.
But first time in China, and it was funny because we were the only Western people there. We were the only,
You can
non-Chinese
say
people
it.
there, and we were
Is
the only
is
ones
like some
singing
sort
in
of-
English.
Why do you always say Western?
Because
You can just say white.
because I'm in
It's
the
okay.
East. But
What do you
she's
mean
not
by-
white. She's what?
She's what? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry. Please.
I'm wondering what your question is.
What were you about to say?
I was gonna say because I guess it's you got Eastern people from the East and from Asia, and then you have well, I guess because she's Russian, she wouldn't be Western. I'll say what everybody else says in foreigner. How about that, Jared?
Okay.
Although
okay.
I don't really like that term because it makes me feel even more like an outsider. But anyways,
Well, Westerner,
yeah, we were
maybe it's just I've just never heard that used so commonly until you've been
Right.
in China,
Right.
And I still every time I hear it, I'm like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but it always catches me. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
So that means we were the only ones singing in English. But the thing I noticed was every Chinese person that was there could really carry a tune. Now, not all of them had the most beautiful, angelic voices, but they could all carry a tune. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Chinese is a tonal language.
So it's easier for them to pick up on songs, even if they're not the greatest singers. They're good at picking up on the tones and how to sing along to a
Right.
song quickly.
Exactly.
Based off of the language
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Now,
anyways, so that was
one thing
Friday. Go ahead.
One thing I always hate about karaoke bars, though, is that it always seems like the music is like the microphones are never loud enough, and you always seem like you're screaming at a karaoke bar. Did you have that problem?
No, this mic was fine. Mic was really good. Things were clear. They definitely know what they're doing there. Like they run a tight
Good.
ship. It's really awesome for any of
Brilliant.
our listeners out there who want to go and get their karaoke on in Beijing. It's called Not a Bar is the name of the bar.
Clever.
Not a Bar in Sanli Tun. Yeah. So yeah, but Friday was great. Had an amazing time, and then Saturday, Annabelle, one of our previous guests, who is a flight attendant,
Oh,
who has been to over 70 different countries, came on Saturday. She had requested a flight into Beijing, and then she actually is flying out today. So safe travels, Annabelle. But anyways, it was so great to see her again. We had an awesome time catching up, and I actually got to go to dinner with her and her Lufthansa crew people. And it was really cool. I got to practice my German a little bit, which was nice.
They're all German?
Yeah, they were all
Okay.
German, and it was really funny. Like a lot of them were kind of looking at me, like trying to figure out like why does this American guy speak German?
You love that.
I do. But we went to a really awesome dumpling place. And dude, you should have seen the receipt because traditional Chinese places usually have like a table and then there's like a lazy Susan, like basically like a spinning thing so you can pass the food around very easily. Because here in China, people share food. You don't just, like in the States, we get like our burger or our whatever, and that's ours and that's what we eat.
That's why their chopsticks tend to be longer.
Very, very good. Paying attention. I like it, Jared. I like it.
Parada.
And so we ordered so much food, and the receipt at the restaurant, I kid you not, Jared, for all of our American listeners, they'll get this joke. It looked like a CVS receipt. Like a CVS receipt just is like pages and pages and pages of extra crap. And so there were 11 of us, Jared. And as I said, the receipt was like a CVS receipt. It was super long. Take a guess how much money we spent per person. We split it evenly. Take a guess how much money we spent per person on food.
How many people were there? Just curious.
11 people.
$18.
You're pretty close. We spent about $20.
Okay.
We were all super full.
That's great. Oh man, I love a good dumpling place too. I mean, I'm sure any place I've been to here doesn't even compare to what you've experienced, but I can like dumplings are the kind of things. It's almost kind of like French fries. If they're in front of me, I cannot stop eating them.
Oh yeah, they are so good, so good. And yeah, it was just a great weekend. I want to thank everybody who came out and made it special. I want to thank you, Jared, as well, for sending me a happy B-Day text. Actually, I got that while I was in the KTV.
Oh, perfect.
And so yeah, it was a great birthday. Right. Great birthday. I really am a huge fan of Beijing. I'm starting to feel more comfortable, like getting my way around Beijing a little bit. Like I kind of am slowly starting to understand how long it'll take to get from like point A to point B in different places. Need to do a lot more sightseeing though. But yeah, it was great. But speaking of birthdays, Jared, I think it's time that we spread a little love and
spread a little love.
Give some shout outs.
So you, due to your internet quandaries, stumbled upon a lovely story, yet you weren't able to open it. And now I feel like I opened it, and now I don't have it open anymore.
Well, while you're looking, I can explain it.
I got it. Here, I got it. All right. Sorry, I got it. A World War II veteran. This is, by the way, on behalf of Chad. Let's just be clear. This is his shout out. I'm merely the messenger. World War II veteran asked for 100 cards for his 100th birthday. He received over 100,000. World War II veteran James South turned 100 years old on Monday. Weeks prior to his big day, he asked for 100 birthday cards. His assisted living community, Brookdale, Watauga, posted a photo of South's wish on Facebook. He never imagined he would receive more than 100,000 cards. To go to a store in town and pick out a card and send it to me, that's almost more than I can handle, I'll tell you, South said. It touches my heart. We're just crying every day because we're just reading all these beautiful cards, his daughter-in-law, Debbie South, said. The cards came from the cards came from as far as Australia, Great Britain, and even China. Shout out to Chad. He heard from the governor of Texas, United States senators, even the president. Our nation owes your generation okay. He's a good guy. Congratulations. And
so yeah, I thought that was a touching story.
Me too.
Yeah.
My shout out to you, Chad, is a shout out, but it's also a question I have, a quandary, shall I say. Okay. Sesame Street. Have you heard about this?
I briefly have heard about this. Sesame Street has a new character.
Yes. Sesame Street has a new character named Carly. Carly was introduced earlier this year as a Muppet in foster care. She is set to reveal that she was placed in foster care as her mother had a quote-unquote grown-up problem. About 5.7 million children in the U.S. under the age of 11 live with a parent who suffer from substance addiction, according to the Associated Press. Carly will tell her story on the Sesame Street in community projects, which is run by Sesame Workshop, the nonprofit organization behind the show. Sorry, that was a handful of a sentence. In the online episodes, Carly tells Elmo and other Muppets about her mom. Sorry, this is from BBC. Meetings in the special kids-only meetings where she gets to spend time with other children who are going through the same experience. So yeah, her mom is experiencing opiate addiction, and they have a character that is experiencing that, and I think it's good. I think it's great. There's first of all, it's very it's very real and useful because it is an epidemic in the U.S. for sure, and maybe it definitely helps with stuff like the stigma and all that stuff, but I think Twitter always has to ruin everything for me because then they're like, what about, during the crack epidemic and all that stuff? There was never, there was never the same sort of care given to people going through typically people of color in the U.S. going through the same issue. Some would argue caused by the United States government. And there was, there wasn't the same sort of care given to that topic back then. It was treated, they were not treated the same way or treated with the same sort of sympathy. And yeah, that's true. But I still think it's good that they do it now also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's better late than never. And I think it's always good whenever there is, a representation for anybody that's going through hard times for whatever reason.
Yes.
And I think especially a show like Sesame Street. I grew up watching Sesame Street as a little kid.
I had cable, so I didn't. But I heard it was a great show.
There you go. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's important that we do give these children and other people an opportunity to feel like they're important because they are. So yeah, I think that's great.
There's a podcast I listen to called The Mental Illness Happy Hour, and he ends every episode by saying you're not alone. I think it's important for kids also to, if they're going through this, to not feel like they need to feel some level, shame, or like no one will, like they have no one to talk to, or like they have to keep stuff secret, and to be able to just talk about stuff freely, I think is very useful. And even though I agree with a lot of that stuff about how it does seem like it is clear that like more sympathy is given when it seems to be more of a white America problem, I still think that it is a America problem. Not, I have a family that suffered from that, from a similar issue. Like start off with some sort of surgery and so I think everyone, even though it is quote unquote white America problem, I think everyone understands that experience, and I think it's a good thing.
I do too. Yeah. So shout out to Sesame Street. I think that's great.
Yeah. I was going to do that. I almost did the ham horn. I was like, that seems like an odd choice. Let's get into some untranslatables. One of my favorites of the Untranslatable podcast. Did you guess why? I'll start, I guess. Why not? My first one is Norwegian, and it's is I magen. Ice in one's stomach.
I figured that was stomach. Okay.
How'd you figure that?
Same word in German. Same
Bauch?
word in German. Magen.
Oh,
Bauch
I would
is
think
belly.
Bauch.
Yeah. Magen's the more like medical term, like your stomach, whereas Bauch is
that's
more
like
your
the
belly
actual
or your
stomach.
tummy. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Ice in the stomach. Is this? I'm trying to think if Norwegians would think ice in your stomach is a good or a bad thing.
That's an important place to start.
Right, exactly. Is this, if you have ice in your stomach, is this just like someone who's always like cool, calm, and collected?
Now, I want to give you a double on this one. We have a similar untranslatable in English.
Ice in their veins?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Great.
Right.
Good job.
Okay.
Good job.
That's a good one. Well, because I was speaking a lot of German this weekend, I figured it would only be fitting to bring you a German one.
Wow, how do you know so much German, Chad? So impressive.
Right. So this one is eine extra Wurst haben.
To have an extra sausage. That feels like to be like overly confident.
Not quite.
To have an extra.
I would say, like to have an extra sausage. I would say, maybe a better way to think of this is to ask for an extra sausage.
But that's not what the direct translation is. Just to be clear,
That's not the direct translation. Yeah.
to ask for another is like to have another chance.
Nope.
Okay.
So think about, Jared. You're on your airplane, and they give you your sausage, and then you're like, well, come on, one sausage? Give me an extra sausage.
To ask for more or to complain?
It's like to ask for special treatment.
Oh, okay. Can you give me the German one again?
Eine extra Wurst haben.
An extra sausage. To have an extra sausage. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to ask for special treatment. It's kind of like, speaking of being on the airplane, asking for the can, for example.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Which is a big thing to do. My next one's Bulgarian, and it's Boli me fada, and it's my lighthouse hurts.
Is that like my brain hurts?
No, but I understand why you would think that.
Right. Let's see. My lighthouse hurts.
That's hilarious. I'm going to start calling my brain my lighthouse.
There we go. I'm trying to think. My lighthouse hurts.
You know, one thing I've learned about growing up, how easy it is to avoid headaches. Really, it's just all up to drinking water for me.
Yep. But this isn't.
That
doesn't mean to have a headache.
I realized
Okay.
recently.
Gotcha.
No.
Gotcha. My lighthouse. Can you give me an example?
So let's say, someone is, I come to you and I'm like, oh my gosh, this podcast is so hard. It takes up so much of my time. I can't do this. And you're like, listen, Jared, my lighthouse hurts. We promise people 2 episodes a week.
Okay. So this is just like a stop complaining, stop making excuses. It's not that bad.
No, it's I don't care.
Oh, I don't care. Okay, I don't care. Listen, Jared, my lighthouse hurts. Okay. All right.
Maybe it's more like, I think maybe it's something to do with like we all have problems, maybe. Is the vibe I get from it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah. Do you have any more untranslatables,
I do.
Chad?
I do. I have a Chinese one for you. I'm trying to think which one I want to cover today. You know what? I'm going to cover this one. It is Pinming Kai Che De Ren Yiding Hui Dao Da Nali, which means a man who drives like hell to get there.
Like someone that's determined on a mission.
I like where
you
your
can't
head's
get
at,
in
but
my
no.
way.
I would say this one is one of the few that on face value, this one there's not much beyond the surface.
So it's like someone that's like trying to avoid their own problems.
You're getting too deep into it.
Okay. Give it to me. Give me the English again then.
A man who drives like hell to get there.
Oh, just someone that is just a road ragey driver, like an aggressive driver.
A reckless driver, exactly.
A reckless driver.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, it really was.
Reckless driver.
A man who drives like hell to get there.
And the reason why I picked this one is, man, you have to drive like hell when you're in Beijing. Like it is. I am always floored, like just by how people will just cut in front of people, won't use a turn signal. It's wild.
Is it like very congested in Beijing, driving around Beijing?
Depends when, but like during rush hour, oh yeah. When I came in on Friday night, it took me an hour and a half, maybe even an hour and 40 minutes to get from the train station to my hotel. And the hotel was only probably a 35 or 40 minute drive if there were no traffic.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty serious.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Do you want me to give you another untranslatable? Do you have any more?
I'm going to save my other one for our next episode.
All right, I'll give you one more then. I have it here, and I like it. And it's Korean. And it's Gaetong de Yage So Loe Myun Ubsda. No, I really messed that up. And it's when you want to find even dog poop to use as medicine, there isn't any.
So this is just like your SOL, like you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. I don't know.
It's I'll say it's even simpler than that. Once again, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I in my own home am always looking for my beanie hat. I'm always looking for it, and sometimes I'll say when you want to find even dog poop to use medicine, there isn't any, and that's how I feel sometimes looking for my. Or, for example, I lose a lot of socks. Like, I lost 2 socks somehow last time. No idea where they went. Somehow between the dryer and my bedroom, gone. No idea.
Okay. So it's just like when things disappear and you can't find them.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay.
They're never where you want them to be, but yeah, essentially because you lose them. Yeah.
And that's always how it works, right? Like it's always
like the simplest things that you use all the time too. Where it's like I should know, I should just have one of these here all the time, but I never do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Scissors. Well, that's another one for me.
Okay. Mine are guitar picks. They just disappear. I don't know where they go.
Of course it is.
And when I was in high school, I always knew where they went because they were always moving around in the dryer. My mom would get so pissed at me.
Did you ever lose any between like your seat and your car seat and like the glove box or the center console?
Probably. I actually used to keep guitar picks in my cup holder for that reason. So yeah. Yep. Okay. Anyways, it's time to talk technology and language learning, Jared. Mm-hmm. And so let me tell you, Jared,
No, just go ahead, please. This is Mr. Pixelated. Just please go ahead.
That's the beauty of having internet lag when you're going from the U.S. to China. So the reason why at least this episode came to mind for me was I was talking to a friend of mine. Jared knows Thomas. He was my roommate in Austria, and we had a conversation about different like apps for language learning and if there will be apps in the future that will make language learning obsolete. And it was an interesting conversation, and I thought and I've also realized that here in China, I haven't learned a ton of Chinese because I use my phone for everything, and I'm able to get by. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not comfortable, it's not glamorous, it's not easy, but you're able to make it work. But that begs to ask the question, will technology make language learning obsolete?
Well, you're right to say that it's not perfect and that it is a struggle and it doesn't always work. It's not reliable, especially in a place like China where they're using a different alphabet completely. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure someone like Thomas would make the argument, and I would agree with him, that it's getting better. This is just the beginning, and this stuff is constant. Like, there are people that's full job within Google is to just work on like the language portion of it, the Google Translate portion of it.
Oh yeah,
that's like a department.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just guessing. I have no idea, but I would assume so.
I would assume so. Yeah.
and so like that stuff is only getting better, and it will make it almost impossible for you to go somewhere and look at a menu or look at a sign and not be able to decipher what that is on the sign, but that is completely different than having a conversation. And I would argue maybe there'd be something that would make it where you could talk, like, for example, in The Good Place. Well, that's a kind of a bad example because it works. But in The Good Place, Chidi's from, like, Africa and speaks French. But because they're in The Good Place or The Bad Place for... Oh, by the way, I figured that out.
Oh.
Spoiler alert.
Okay. Okay.
I forgot. Nice. I didn't mean to ruin it, but I did figure that out. And it's gotten crazy. Anyway, spoiler
Such
alert.
A good
I'm
show.
so bad with spoilers because I never watch TV shows and I don't even think about it. But yeah, no.
I mean, I've seen all the episodes, so you're not spoiling anything for me.
I know I'm not spoiling it for you, but now I'm trying not to. Now I'm like stopping myself from talking about it.
Anyways, what Jared is trying to say is Chidi, one of the characters, he speaks French, and
right.
Eleanor, the other character, speaks English.
Is American, yeah.
Right, and because they're wherever they may be, they're able to speak to each other and understand each other's native language. Just instantly.
So theoretically, from Chi's perspective, if we were to see that, it would be all in French.
Right.
But so maybe that will happen. But I believe that I believe that kind of thing is almost like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like the same conversation as like autonomous vehicles, where it's like, yeah, it's coming, but I don't think it's coming anywhere as close to as quickly as you might think. One, for example, as people that you and I have both written papers in German, we know the limitations of a translator online, like the one where you actually like type in a word or a phrase. And I think that's probably one of the best versions of it. It's way more reliable than someone speaking something.
Right.
And it might be able to and still today, most of those are just 100% literal translators. So there's no way you could put in an untranslatable in there, like a lot of the untranslatables we talk about in our untranslatable segment, and actually just get the understanding of it. Because what will it do? Will it give you back an American untranslatable? Would it give you, like in an ideal world, would it give you back an American untranslatable equivalent? Would it give you back exactly what they're saying? Sometimes that doesn't even exist. So I think that there are still a lot of limitations to making it something that would prevent someone from taking the effort to learn a language. You know what I mean? You still can't replace that.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing too, is that a lot of these apps, translation apps and stuff like that, they're really good for a lot of basic stuff like signs, menus, basic things like this. But you're right. Once we start talking about idioms and phrases and untranslatables, it gets a lot uglier and a lot. It's because the thing is that you can't really provide a translator app right now, at least currently that I know of, with the context, and language is all based on context. Yeah. Like what's kind of funny, Jared, is
sarcasm.
When I took
how do you? I mean, sorry.
Right. No, you're right. Sarcasm. And then just like, different like phrases that have a completely different meaning. Like here in China, for example, Jared, what a lot of Chinese people will say, and even the cab driver, when I took a cab in the morning to get from my hotel to Annabelle's hotel. God damn it. I get in the cab, and what I've learned about China though, Jared, is that if you sit in the passenger seat with the taxi driver, they'll talk to you. Like they will, even though I have no idea what they're saying, they'll talk to you. And so the taxi driver asked me, I say in Chinese, "Ti bu tong," which means I don't understand, and then they just keep talking. Usually then they talk louder because, it's not a language thing. It's clearly a volume thing while I'm sitting right next to you in the passenger seat.
But anyways. That's what my mom would do when we lived in Germany. If people didn't understand her, she'd just talk louder.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think that's helping, Mom.
Right. I want the bagel. Yeah. Oh man,
this is too real. I'm having flashbacks, Chad.
Right. But anyways, what they'll ask you in China is they'll say, "Have you eaten yet?" That's like how they say, "How are you?" I think it's something like,
is that like a literally just like a "How are you?" Is that's a how has that never come up as an untranslatable? That's an amazing one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a great question. I guess I should have done that one. Now I'm really sad because that would have been a really great one.
Because if he asked me, "Have you eaten yet?" My first thought would not be, "How are you?"
Right. That's like saying, because Chinese people love to eat.
And it's kind of a cliche here in the U.S., but anyone that goes over to a grandparent or older relative's house,
true.
Like that's almost like that's what all my grandparents ask me as soon as I get to their house. Are you hungry? Do you want something? When's the last time you ate?
Right. Yeah.
Those are all the questions, all like the first 4 questions I get when I go over to their house.
and the funny thing was, when he asked me that, I had heard the phrase before, but I didn't realize it until I used the translator on my phone. Now, I will tell you this, though, Jared. I know a lot of companies have invested a lot of time, energy, and money into getting, I forget the technical term for it now, but there's like a technical term for when you recognize, like a computer can recognize speech, and then either it transcribes it directly for you, it translates it.
Like
There's
YouTube
a specific
does that.
term. Right.
It automatically does the subtitles.
Right. They're not always great, but it can do that.
But it is surprisingly good, I'll say that.
Right. But and that was my point, is that my Google Translate app, and now that Google Translate does work in China, thank the Lord, because I would be so screwed on so many levels. And so what I can do is I hit the microphone thing, they'll speak into it, takes a minute to process it, but it's really crazy. You know, it shows the characters, and then it will spit back English for me. So I think for very basic survival things, we are at a stage now where you technically wouldn't. Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, you technically don't need to learn a language, but like you've said, and I completely agree, the fact that idioms and phrases and different things you won't be able to translate. Like when that guy asked me if I'd eaten yet, when I translated it, because I had heard about this before, I knew what he was talking about. But you know, for most people, they'd be like, "Is the taxi driver inviting me to lunch? Like, what is what is going on?"
Your response is like, "No, I'm not hungry." He's like, "No, I don't care."
right. My lighthouse hurts.
Yeah. So do you? Oh God, I forgot what I was gonna say. So like, how is it with? Did you try that in China? In Czech Republic?
Not really.
Because I
because
wonder.
a lot. Go ahead.
Well, I asked because I wonder how well it works in a place like China, for example, where they tend to speak a lot faster than some other countries, in general.
Right. Well, and I think people in the Czech Republic speak pretty fast too, actually. And so, but I didn't use it a ton in the Czech Republic because a lot of people either spoke enough English to communicate what they were trying to communicate, or some German. So I had some kind of fallback plans over there. So I didn't need to resort to the translator app like I have here. And it's really amazing, Jared. Like, I really feel like I am really needed here in China, because I know a lot of people here in China that don't speak any English. I mean, not even like, they might say hello, but that's it. They really don't speak any English.
Does that make you feel good as a teacher?
Like, it does.
Okay, interesting.
It does.
You kind of feel like you like, that's your calling then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, once again, though, back to the whole technology making language learning obsolete, I think there's just something that maybe the technology one day will get there. But to me right now, it's just not, it's still very clunky and very robotic.
Now, it's definitely,
so I think
it's definitely good for like conversation and stuff like that. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. And listen, yeah, I realize I'm on the Untranslatable podcast. I love talking to people that speak different languages. But it would get super annoying to have a conversation face-to-face with someone through a phone. Like for an extent, maybe for a night, but I mean for like, you know, an extended period of time, I would not want to do that. I was like, this is not ideal. And you can't, like, there's no sort of body language really along with the conversation, so it's still lacking something. I feel like even though it can make a lot of situations a lot easier, it's still not a great way to like make a friendship, you know? Like, you still can't really understand someone's personality by passing a phone back and forth. Right. And it's like how much, and it's like, you can't understand, like and then also when, you know, another thing about that is when you're doing that, at least for me, it's like, all right, how can I make this both interesting / funny also not make it where I'm sitting here writing a goddamn essay on the phone. Right. You know? Right. It's like, all right, read this paragraph, write it back, and I'll just sit here and wait. You know, go ahead. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, and then you're also dependent on, you know, you're really so dependent on the technology that it doesn't give you the freedom to like really have a free flowing conversation. Now, I do think within the next 10 to 15 years,
there will be something that will be able to either like a little ear pod or like something like that where you can pop it in, they'll speak
that's
it.
a great idea.
If they wear them, well, I've seen a couple videos of like I forget the name of the company, but some companies trying to develop it. But once again, you can't translate humor. You can't translate so much.
I hear what you're talking about. Essentially, a situation where, and it doesn't even have to be like the actual headphone technology is nothing fancy. It's just a normal headphone. It's the phone, or excuse me, it's the actual program that's doing it. But like, you can essentially both be wearing some sort of headphone situation with the microphone on it. Like if you were to be wearing headphones and talking to someone on the phone and talk into it, and then the person would be hearing you in the headphone in real time. It would be translating it, giving it to you. And I hear that, and once again, there's still the problem of things like untranslatables and stuff. How will those be translated? What kind of decisions are being made on those? And then also there's the challenge of... I'm also thinking of like, my podcasting brain is thinking of the logistics of the microphone. So are you guys writing, like, what if you guys are at some sort of loud situation and you guys have to talk close to each other or you have to yell at each other? How good are these microphones that we're talking where you could just pick up you in a loud, crowded room, for example, and know that that's you talking into that microphone? And I don't know. There's just so many, and then how do you immediately connect with the person in front of you without having to do some sort of weird, put our phone up together, make sure our AirPlay, or what is it where you do that? AirDrop is connected, or I don't know. There's just so many questions I have, and so many things that make me think that I like the idea and I like that this is progressing, but it's never gonna. It's so far from being as smooth as we really want it to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think the other thing too is that whenever you are so dependent on technology that you have to use it to communicate, I'm talking more about like in person, writing messages and stuff. Like we've been able to do that for a while now. But like when you really want to make a connection with somebody, like imagine like you go on a date with like a guy or a girl and you have these little microphone thingies. It's not going to be able to pick up all the subtleties of your tone of voice, your phrasing, your humor. There's just so much. I think that the technology it's a barrier.
Can you listen to both? Because even though you understand that, I agree with you 100%. And even though you understand that, this is coming through my. Let's imagine that there's a system where you can, have a headphone and it's in real time coming through. How good is someone to be able to listen to that, to understand it? But then maybe I'm overthinking it. But like, are people good enough, just as humans, to be able to take that in, but then also look at the person's face at the same time and pick up the body language in real time like that? Right. Maybe we can do that. Do you think we could do that? Because I don't fully think we can't do that. But in my head, for some reason, that seems like a lot of different angles to get input from.
Right.
Because it's also weird. For example, when we do this podcast, even occasionally if I have to itch my ear and I like move the headphones out of the way, when I take the headphones off and I hear like the sort of the outside world, it feels a little weird in a weird way.
Right.
Or like hearing the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can. It's just a matter of how quick these, the technology will work to translate things.
That's a good point.
Also, if it makes sense, I think there's all it would take is, and then the other question though too, is what about accents and dialects? What if the technology you're using is only accustomed to British English? You and I are going to be screwed. We can try our best to do our best British accent, but it's not going to work, right? Or, in China, they have a lot of different, accents all throughout China. So I could see that being very problematic, especially for people who speak a much more accented, language. I think that could be a really big issue. And I
think that's
I don't know enough about the technology.
I think that's a problem for people now. Maybe this was a comedian I saw do this on YouTube or something, but there was something about like people with different, even like American accents, trying to use things like Siri or the Amazon thing, I
Right.
didn't say it because it usually sets off people's things. You're welcome, everyone.
Right.
No, but there's like there's like this thing about like like even Southern accents sometimes have struggles with it, or maybe like a Boston or New York accent might be too thick to be able to work with these sort of things that have already become so standard in most people's life in
Right.
daily usage.
And that also begs to ask the question, what about our English language learners? They have accents. Are these programs going to work for them if they're using English to, maybe they wouldn't and they just use their native language. But yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. We're talking about we're talking about communication. But another part of this in general is maybe we both agree, and I think we do, that for a long, long time, as for our lifetime for sure, and I think many lifetimes, there will still be a lot of merit to actually learning another language. Like actually physically being able to speak it with your mouth and hold a conversation reliably in that language. That will be useful for a long time. But will the process of learning that change? I think communication is one half of like this language technology thing, but then the learning it is another part of it. Because something we always talk about that's, at least I think, is very important for language learning is the immersion in it and the ability to have conversations with people, the ability to potentially make those mistakes in real time, Will we be able to replicate that with technology? Now, that's probably easier to replicate, I think.
Yeah,
than
maybe.
like having conversations with like friendly conversations, I think would be.
Right. Now, I think it also needs to be mentioned, though, Jared, that we have focused primarily on conversations in spoken language. I do think, in a way, language, like technology, even as it is now, has made writing, like text messaging and emailing, I wouldn't say obsolete, but it isn't as big of a problem, I think, as it used to be. Because, on WeChat, if I get a message from someone in Chinese, on the app itself, I can like hold down on whatever they sent me. Then this little like menu pops up, and I can click translate, and it will translate it right below it. And so far, the translations have been very accurate.
I have the same,
as far as I know.
essentially the same thing. You're just getting wildly wrong impressions from people. My iPhone, I'm grasping on to the last bit of German knowledge I have in my head, and my phone is in German. But like on social media and stuff, most of the people I follow and stuff are speaking English. So so for just about every tweet and Instagram post, there's a little thing at the bottom that says translate it, and it literally, Übersetzen is actually what it says.
Yeah.
And it'll actually just like translate it straight to German right there, and it'll look like, it'll translate it in the sense where it looks like they wrote it in German,
Yeah. It's cool how that works, isn't it, with social media? Yeah, I mean, Facebook does that, Twitter does that, right? Twitter does that too, doesn't it?
Yeah. All of them, all the social media,
Instagram, So I think we are slowly getting there, but I don't know. There's just something different about, like you said, being able to actually speak or write the language yourself. I think there's a bit of a more, because you have more cultural knowledge usually as well, so I think you can also relate to people better with that in mind.
Yes.
I think there's just so many... Go ahead.
I also think there's this also just, in general, there's still like a sort of a... like there's a respect to talking to someone and not taking out your phone, And there's sort of like a... Like it is sort of like a... For example, at the dinner table, I still... even though I'm not eating dinner with my parents every day, I still try my hardest not to take out my phone while I'm eating dinner with, not by myself. I don't care if I'm by myself. But if I'm like eating dinner with my girlfriend, I try my hardest not to take out my phone. And honestly, I get a little offended if she is just like, not that she does, but I would, not even her, just friends, people in general. Like I get kind of annoyed. So I think, as I was saying, I think that... I'm still not fully ready to, and maybe I sound like an old man right now. I'm still not fully ready to have like conversations where I have to like pass a phone. Like I'll do it. It's like I'm not against it, but
Right.
I'm not. I don't know how I feel about making friendships based off of like passing phones back and forth. You know?
Right. Right. There's just something impersonal about it. You know, it's not.
It's like I feel like I never really know you.
Right. Right. Yeah. You just can't make that connection with somebody. You know, whether that be a friendship connection or a romantic one. You know, I can't imagine like going on a date with a girl here in China and then just us passing our phones back and forth. Like that's, and you know, and like we've said numerous times already during the segment, like you lose humor, you lose, you know, there's so much about language that is more than just the words at face value. And
Right.
until the technology gets there to somehow do that, I don't know how it, I think maybe someday it will. I just don't know how you actually do that. I have no idea.
Yeah, because the untranslatables, I think that's a tough part of it. But anyway,
Right.
speaking of untranslatables, speaking of not being able to fully translate things, let's talk about the song of the pod. My goal for you, Chad, I like to help you, you know. I like to see you flourish and do your best. And I think it's important that you immerse yourself into the Chinese culture, figure out what the kids are into these days, and
Right.
also sort of appeal to your own taste. So I tried to find some hip hop. We both like hip hop rap music. I tried to find some some big Chinese hip hop artists. So the next time you find yourself out at a KTV or something, you can maybe request some
Oh, there we go.
Higher Brothers, for example. And
That's
this
right.
song is by Higher Brothers featuring Famous Dex. And the song's called Made in China. And it's Higher Brothers is a group of actually Asian and Asian American. But they're
Okay.
based in China, though. They're based in
Okay.
Chengdu, China. But they're,
Okay.
I think some of them are Asian American. And
Okay.
they sing, they're a hip hop group made up of, I think, 4 or 5 dudes. And they
Okay.
sing mostly in Chinese, but they have some like hooks and verses and stuff in English too.
I'll give you a quick little cultural fact, Jared. Chengdu is actually where the pandas are in China.
Well, what do you mean
So
the
put a
pandas?
little. That's where they come from.
Oh, okay. That's the only place you can find pandas in China? I mean, like wild pandas?
I think that's where they're naturally. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
Pretty
know they were
sure.
just from one spot like that.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, back to the Higher Brothers Made in China. Yeah, this track is a banger. Like, this is what I woke up to this morning, which is
Perfect.
good way to wake up and get ready to go. And it's pretty cool. It's got like this really kind of interesting. I don't know what the instrument is, but it has like a cool kind of Asian sounding instrument to start
Yes,
start off
the
the
beat is
song, which I
great.
really liked. And
Yeah,
then it's
because
weird though.
it is like a strong hip hop beat, but they do have like that that I don't know what it's called either, but that like Chinese, that very traditional Chinese sound just underneath
Right.
it for a lot of it.
Right. Well, and then after the hook, there's almost like this kind of weird dubstep like sounding thing going on too, which was pretty interesting. The song to me it's all over the place. It's great, but it's all
I
over the
legitimately
place.
liked it though. I'm not gonna lie, and I listened to a couple of their other songs, and I digged it. I digged it, and it's like it's rare that I find like, I've looked for a lot of music, and I like hip hop and stuff, so I like to find like good modern hip hop, and it's rare that I found like this is it's like a very good imitation of like American hip hop, which is a rare thing I
Right.
feel like I find from other countries.
That's
Because
true.
I feel like a lot of other countries, like they're not that there's anything good or bad about this, but it's just like their hip hop is so clearly not American. This sounded like the most authentic, just it was in Chinese, essentially.
Right. Well, I like that the first half of the song, it seems like the first couple of verses are in English and then they switch to Chinese,
Yes.
which is pretty cool. I really
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, and it's like I mean, the song's called Made in China because it's kind of a joke about how, I think it's sort of essentially a joke about how everything in the U.S. is made in China, but they sort of like flip it to be like, oh, made in China because everything, we're balling essentially. We're made in
Yep.
China and we're
Yep.
balling. And,
Yeah.
I like the I don't know. It's not a message. I mean, they're not trying to like send some sort of. I don't. A message is a little too like mighty for what it is.
Right.
But I essentially like what they're saying, and it's catchy. So check it out,
But
please.
I think that's a common trope in hip hop music in general, though.
Oh, for
is
sure,
to
of
like
course.
rep
Yeah,
your
ballin'.
city, and be proud of where you came from, and
And to tell people why you're balling.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good one though. So check it out. Made in China by the Higher Brothers, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you can
Featuring
find it
famous
on our
Dex.
YouTube channel. Right. And you
know
can
what's
find
actually
it on
great?
our YouTube channel. What?
No, go ahead. You can finish. Untranslatable Podcast is our YouTube channel. There was.
we go.
Sorry, this I blame the pixelation. There was a so famous Dex. I believe is an American person. I've never heard of that name before, but I think he's American because so I saw a YouTube video of this like a music video. I didn't send it to you because I wasn't even sure if you'd be able to see it or not. But
Right.
so I was like, you find it yourself. This is what the song's called. That's what I just have to do
Right.
nowadays. But
Yep.
oh yeah, okay. Famous Dex is from Chicago, and in the music video, so there was a section of it where it just said video, like it was like a red background, and it was sort of a cool like a video background where it has like a little time counter, and it says like video redacted, audio still here, and it was just like the section where he was featuring, and my guess would be because. Famous Dex wasn't able to physically get to China to shoot the music video. They weren't able to
Right.
get him in the music video, so they just made it. But the way they made it seem like was sort of a play on that whole, a play on the whole sort of censorship thing. I thought it seemed like it. Because it was like, we had to redact the video part of this. And so it was just like a
Right.
minute of just like, and I thought it was a cool way to do it. And I thought it was cool. Maybe I'm making it up
Right.
and that wasn't what it is, but that's what it felt like to me. And whether it was or not, I mean, obviously they can't say whether it was or not, but
Right.
I thought it was a cool little thing. But my assumption was just that he couldn't get to China to film the music video.
Yeah, who knows? That's an interesting take on it, though. Yeah, and I'm not really sure, but yeah, it's an awesome song. Definitely one to get you pumped up and ready.
You betcha.
And if you're Chinese, make you feel like you're a baller because lots of cool stuff's made in China.
Now, I also brought the song up, so next time you are out somewhere, you can mention, like if someone asks you if you like any Chinese music, bring up Higher Brothers.
There we go. I appreciate it, buddy. So now,
I'm keeping
speaking
you
of
in the know.
Chinese, right? It's time for my Chinese word of the pod, and my Chinese word of the pod today is yu yan, and yu yan means language. Figure
Okay.
that would be a very fitting word for today's episode.
Yeah, I couldn't understand why. Mine is here. One more. I got one more for you. I do a Spanish words of the pod, everyone, and mine is. I'm gonna spell it out for you. DESARROLLO. Desarrollo.
Desarrollos?
There's no S at the end. Desarrollo.
Desarrollo?
Okay, yeah. That's a tough one. And
That is a tough one.
But yeah, because LLO, because I know LLO would still be, like, if the LL is still, like, the E, like the...
Or like a Y, like a...
whatever. It's progress, growth, development. And I chose that one because
that's
we're
a good
talking about
one.
learning a language.
Absolutely. And I think eventually we may get there with the technology to do some of the things we've discussed that it's not there yet for. But the question is really, how can you make it more human? I mean, the whole point of language is to communicate and connect and build
Yes.
relationships. And so that's always the funny thing with any technological advancement is where does humanity come into play with this morality, all these things. Like I remember talking to one of my dad's coworkers. His daughter is married to a guy who works for Google in Ann Arbor, and he was telling me like the technology is already there for self-driving cars, but they haven't figured out yet. If you have a self-driving car and it's going 80 miles down the freeway, and then an old lady walks
Right.
in front of the car, do you hit the old lady or does the car swerve off the road and kill the driver?
I actually just
and
saw
there's
that Good Place episode with the train.
Right. And so, oh, that's a funny one.
Which
But
is
yeah,
the exact
so, I
same
mean, the thing-
scenario.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also the thing with the self-driving thing, and I think also it's kind of similar to what you're talking about, where it's like it would work if everyone did it, But it's like we also
Right.
have to like a part of the problem with it is everyone agreeing on what a translation is, what means what, and
Right.
and I think that's something that we'll get past that, but that's something that you can never really agree on, like a proper translation for things.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I am amazed at where we're at already technologically with like translation. Just like with the Google Translate app, like that has been my like crutch ever since I've been here. It's been
in Czech Republic
incredibly
too,
helpful.
it was a crutch.
Yeah, it was not as much as it is here though. Because I had other ways to communicate there. Here, that's the only tool. So as I've
Right.
probably mentioned on other episodes, you better believe I got my portable battery with me at all times because if my phone dies, I can't get a cab home. Mm-hmm. So that's no good.
Is there no such thing as hailing a cab where you're at?
You can, but how am I going to tell them?
Where you're
I need to
going?
learn how to say the names of places better.
Do you
and then
know
it would be
like
no
your
problem.
address?
Not in Chinese, no.
Yeah, you gotta at least know that.
I have it written down, but I
Okay.
don't know how to say it.
But it's written down in
so-
your phone.
Yeah, so I should exactly. Yeah, maybe I need to keep like a thing in my wallet
You
of
are
like basic
screwed.
stuff I need in Chinese.
Your name, your address, your
Right.
phone number, just
Right.
basic things. Write them down.
Exactly. But I think the other thing is that if we do get to the point where technology makes language learning obsolete, I don't think we will, because I think there's so many, just thinking of like the friends I have that I've met through being able to speak German, even bits and pieces of Czech. There's just something that I don't think a translation app or technology could replace. Mm-hmm. Like there's
with
just, yeah.
I'm with you.
I think it will make it less urgent to know all sorts of stuff in different languages.
Also,
like
I don't
if-
want to discourage people to learn another language too.
right.
Like
Me
I
either.
don't want people to ever think that like, oh, there's no point, because I don't think we're anywhere close to that, to even being like it's not like we're at a point where it's like, I mean, what's the point of me starting to learn a language? By the time I do, I can just do it all through my phone. That's not where we're
Right.
at in this journey here.
No, absolutely not. I think neither of us are advocates for that by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely not. That's for sure. Well, Jared, I have a couple tech jokes for you. Let me pull them up here real quick. So, Jared, what is the biggest lie that people do when they use a computer?
Incognito tab.
No.
Okay.
I have read and agree to the terms and
yeah.
conditions.
I don't think I've ever read a full terms and conditions thing.
Right. It was funny when I forget what app I had to open, but I opened an app here, and it wouldn't let you click next until you at least scrolled all the way down.
I've seen those before.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had to do those before.
Right. All right. What do you do after your Nintendo game ends in a tie?
You break it.
You ask for a Wii match.
Okay. So I didn't know. I was thinking like Nintendo 64.
Right. Right. Just goes to show you our generation, right, Jared? When I think of Nintendo, I still think in N64 as well. for
GameCube
sure.
too. GameCube was big for us too. Let's be fair.
Right. That's true. So, Jared, how does a computer get drunk?
It drinks a lot of rum.
I like where your head's at, but no. It takes a lot of screenshots.
Oh. Okay. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, so those are my jokes for today's episode, and I think to recap this episode, we've made a lot of leaps and bounds regarding translation technology. That is for sure. I mean, like I live and die by my phone here in China, more or less. It seems like
I do here in the US.
I really hate it. What?
I do here in the U.S. and I can fully communicate with everyone around me.
Right. Exactly. But I think there's just so many different aspects and reasons why you should learn a language in terms of cultural knowledge, in terms of learning about, how to think a little differently too, I think is a great thing. And the other thing too is that I think in a lot of ways, because technology makes our lives so convenient, it also makes us lazier. I'm not going to say it makes us less intelligent, but it definitely doesn't help our critical thinking and our thinking skills.
Sure.
If your computer just does everything for you. So I think there are definitely cognitive benefits to learning a language as well. They do say it reduces the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Fun fact: if you're bilingual, you have a lower chance of lower probability of getting dementia or Alzheimer's. Plus, I mean, there's just it's fun. It's great to connect with people, and unless there's a way that technology is able to do that, or if people in the future get so used to leaning on technology, which could happen. I mean, we're already staring at our phone screens too much as it is, probably in terms of like what's good for our minds, our souls, and our health. But hey, we're not there yet. Maybe we'll get there someday. But we hope you've enjoyed listening to us ramble on about. At least I think it was very safe to say we were both pro. It won't make language learning obsolete. Some of that has to do with our bias as. Go ahead, buddy.
I would say yes, but let me be clear. I'm for as much of the innovation of this technology as possible, and I think that it could only make life better and easier. Mm-hmm. But it just does. I just in my head I hear list people being like, "Well, why would I bother learning? I can just do it through my phone when I visit." It's like,
right?
Yeah, I guess.
Right. Don't be one of those people.
Please.
Don't be one of those people. Yeah, that's for sure. Exactly. You won't get half of our drops if you.
That's a very good point.
Unless you're got a really quick trigger finger on your phone and you can just pull up your translation app and hold it up. So yeah, but I think we're definitely making progress in terms of translation apps and technology being a helpful tool, especially in like emergency situations, without a doubt. But for the deeper kind of more human aspect of life and getting to know people and understanding culture and things like this, I think that cannot be replaced so far as we have with technology. So we hope you've enjoyed. Let us know if you have any other ideas about how whether or not technology will make language learning obsolete. Let us know at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to hear our hype song of the pod today, Made in China by the Higher Brothers, check out our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast, and check out our Instagram for all sorts of clips, pictures, and other shenanigans as well. And lastly, please, 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Let us know how we can make this podcast better for you. So we hope you've enjoyed today's episode. We thank you all so much for your support. And as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, Děkujeme, muchas gracias, and 谢谢.